Holy crap, we're really having the worst luck ever. Liu Chengfeng cursed and swore. You know that old woman never comes back earlier or later. But of all times, she comes back just when we're about to leave. Ning Qiushui did not answer his question. The first thing that came to mind was the map of the sorceress's mansion. They had searched the area before, and Ning Qiushui had memorized the general entrances to the sorceress's residence. Because the walls in this place were too high, and there were sharp shards of glass on them, there was no way to force their way out. They also couldn't confront the sorceress head-on, so the only option was to go around her. Fortunately, the sorceress was all alone, and villagers rarely came to this place, so she was in a state of isolation and helplessness. Holy crap, buddy, look. Liu Chengfeng glanced back and shuddered in fright. The sorceress, who had been walking unsteadily, was now chasing after them at an astonishing speed. The sorceress dropped her dragon-headed cane, her face contorted with rage, her eyes filled with an inexplicable longing for them. Her running posture grew increasingly distorted and bizarre. You, how dare you trespass on my property? I will skin you alive, tear off your bones, rip open your skulls, and pour hot oil into your brains. The sorceress roared wildly, and Liu Chengfeng, who was running behind her, felt his bladder was very full. Cold sweat seeped from his forehead. He knew that the sorceress was definitely not joking. Judging from the ghostly things they saw at Fankentang and Bruhaging, the sorceress really is capable of doing such things. Holy crap, how come she's getting faster and faster? After finally managing to get to the main gate of the mansion with Ning Qiushui, they discovered that the shaman had locked it from the inside. Clearly, the suspicious and overly cautious fortune-teller had already anticipated that someone might come to her residence and had deliberately taken extra precautions. The lock on the gate was an old-fashioned lock, which, together with a sturdy chain, firmly secured the door frame. Quick, Big Beard opened the door. Ning Qiushui watched as the sorceress appeared at the corner of the archway at the end of the road, and her heart began to pound violently. Like a monk striking a bell, each beat feeling as if it would jump out of her throat. Liu Chengfeng saw the lock on the gate and, without thinking, immediately took out the wire and fiddled with the keyhole. But it was at this very moment that the sorceress's terrifying figure drew ever closer to them. The two of them could almost smell the unpleasant odor emanating from the sorceress in the air. I treated you with the utmost kindness, but you impolite fellows not only didn't appreciate it, but you even tried to steal from my house. Since you liked my home so much, why don't you stay? Because Ning Qiushui was blocking the way. The sorceress could not see Liu Chengfeng, who was standing behind Ning Qiushui, struggling to unlock the door. She assumed that the two men had given up resistance and were just standing there waiting to die. And the sorceress, from who knows when or where, suddenly pulled out a strange thing from her hand. It was a deathly white bone knife. On the blade of the bone knife, there were still some black, unidentified substances. They looked sticky and disgusting. When Ning Qiushui saw this bone knife, he immediately thought of the black substances on Bai Zhouxiu's neck. He guessed that Bai Zhouxiu's head had been cut off by this bone knife. As the sorceress approached step by step, the lock behind them finally made the sound of it being open. Immediately afterwards, Liu Chengfeng let out a deep shout, gathered his energy in his danxian, and kicked open the door. Bang! Ning Qiushui was the first to run out. At this point, there's no time to be modest. Survival is the most important thing. The two ran wildly, and behind them came the angry roar of the sorceress. It seemed that even the sorceress herself did not expect that one of them was a master lock picker. But perhaps because the book Ning Qiushui was holding was too important. The sorceress still did not give up and continued to chase after them. Holy shit, how can this old geezer run so fast? His legs are so strong. Does he usually use your immortal cane? After running about half a kilometer, Ning Qiushui didn't feel much fatigue, but Liu Chengfeng was panting heavily and his face was pale. Due to 2 years of high-intensity training, this level of physical exertion was completely within Ning Qiushui's acceptable range. But just because he could accept it didn't mean others could. That sorceress isn't in good health. Don't be fooled by her following us like this. Pushing her body to its limits like this will inevitably lead to a terrible price. Upon hearing this, a hint of joy, though not outwardly cheerful, appeared on Liu Chengfeng's face. So, we can just wear her down to death. Ning Qiushui shook her head and slowed her pace slightly. Liu Chengfeng, who was panting heavily, also slowed down, finally getting a chance to catch his breath. I can wear her down. You probably can't. But it doesn't matter. I have this book. Judging from the fortune teller's reaction, this book must contain a very important secret, and she won't give up easily. Now that she's slowed down, we'll pretend to slow down too, acting like we're exhausted, so she'll see hope in catching us and keep running. Liu Chengfeng looked back at the sorceress who was still chasing after them. This old woman was indeed quite formidable. After running for so long, he was almost out of breath, but she still looked completely calm and collected. If the sorceress hadn't slowed down, he would have felt utterly hopeless. Hey buddy, does this road look familiar? The moment Liu Chengfeng looked away, he finally realized the problem. Ning Qiushui adjusted her breathing as she answered, "Of course, it's ripe. This road leads to Fangkentang." Upon hearing this familiar place name, Liu Chengfeng's eyes lit up instantly. Damn, you're really awesome, bro. You just lured her there like that. Ning Qiushui raised the book in her hand. These things are very important to her, and the sorceress will not give up easily. The two continued to adjust their pace, and in this chase, they got closer and closer to Fang. The high platform had even pierced through the gaps in the dense forest and come into view of the two of them. Just then, feeling finally saved, Liu Chengfeng looked back at the sorceress one last time. But it was this one glance that froze his smile. Looking back, Liu Chengfeng suddenly realized that the sorceress, who had been running on 2 legs, was now like a wild beast, with her upper body on the ground, using both hands and feet, chasing after them like a hungry wolf. Damn, has she regressed to a super-regressed state? Liu Chengfeng let out a strange cry. His heart, which had just relaxed, suddenly tightened again. The two saw that the sorceress, who had slowed down earlier, suddenly picked up speed again. When her hands touched the ground, and even faster than before, human bones and the skeletal and muscular structures of wild animals are different, which means that most people cannot run on both hands and feet like wild animals. Besides coordination, the most important thing is that most people do not have enough arm strength and flexibility to support them in quickly releasing force. It's fine to run like a wild animal for a short time, but if you do it for a long time, your arms will get injured. However, the sorceress chasing them from behind seemed to have truly transformed into a ferocious beast at this moment. Her movements were extremely contorted, yet incredibly fast. In just a few seconds, the distance between the three people was reduced by dozens of meters. At this moment, the sorceress was less than 20 meters away from Ning Qiushui and Liu Chengfeng. Oh no, buddy, she's catching up. After running for so long, Liu Chengfeng felt a strong sense of suffocation in his lungs. He couldn't breathe and his head was spinning. He had only managed to keep going until now thanks to a strong will to survive. Even so, his body was almost at its limit. Even if he wanted to speed up again, he was powerless to do so. At this rate, the fortune teller will probably catch up with him in less than 5 seconds. It would take him at least 20 seconds to get to Fakantang. And so, the distance between them grew closer and closer. The sorceress's ugly and ferocious face gradually magnified before my eyes. Her features were almost distorted, and her pupils were filled with scarlet blood vessels, devoid of any human color. Liu Chengfeng tried to squeeze out the last bit of strength from his body, like squeezing a sponge, but his legs simply wouldn't obey him and refused to move forward. Finally, the distance between the sorceress and Liu Chengfen reached the point of no return. Seeing the sorceress pounce on him like a wild beast or a demon, Liu Chengfen felt utterly desperate. At this moment, he had only one thought: if he could leave this bloodgate alive this time, he would definitely train his long-distance running properly. Hey, are you looking for this? Liu Chengfeng was tackled to the ground by the sorceress. Just as the bone knife in the sorceress's hand was about to fall, Ning Qiushui's voice made the sorceress's movements suddenly stop. She slowly raised her head, her bloodshot eyes fixed on the book in Ning Qiushui's hand. The next moment, she saw Ning Qiushui suddenly throw the book away. That direction is Fankentang. The sorceress roared in anger and terror, and surprisingly spared Liu Chengfeng beneath her. She quickly ran towards the book falling from the sky and caught it just before it hit the pond. The fortune teller, upon receiving the book, almost instantly reverted to human forms. She still stood hunched over on the high platform, her back to the pool, her eyes filled with intense, killing intent as she looked at Ning Qiushui and the other person. "Game over, you bugs." The sorceress's voice was icy cold, while a bright smile graced her lips. What a pity. I won in the end. In fact, I have never lost. Never. Ning Qiushui pulled Liu Chengfan, who was lying on the ground, up and walked step by step to the outside of Fanken Pond. There, she stood below the high platform and looked up directly at the sorceress. Yes, the game is over, he laughed. When the fortune teller saw the smile on Ning Qiushui's face, her expression stiffened slightly, and a very bad premonition suddenly filled her heart. Just then, the sound of churning water suddenly came from the pond behind us. The sound was bubbling and gurgling, as if the entire pond was boiling. Upon hearing this voice, the sorceress's body trembled involuntarily. She lowered her head, looking at the blue stone beneath her feet, and a great fear appeared in her eyes. How did I get here? Previously, when she was pursuing someone, in order to get the book from Ning Qiushui, she had to enter that state, and in that state, the sorceress's rationality was limited. She wanted to leave the platform, but some black algae suddenly began to wriggle and climbed onto her body, trapping her firmly. No, no, the sorceress screamed in terror and kept cutting the black algae with the bone knife in her hand. The bone knife in her hand was indeed powerful, capable of cutting through the female ghost's indestructible hair. However, there was simply too much black algae, and no matter how she cut, new algae would immediately fill the gap. In the end, even the sorceress's arms were completely immobilized. Glug, glug. The sound of water grew louder and louder as it emerged from behind her. Soon, the two people standing below the platform saw a woman's skin slowly rise from the water and stand behind the sorceress. The woman, her skin gleaming, reached out and made a gentle stroke. The sorceress's fingers, which were holding a bone knife, fell to the ground in front of the two people below the stone platform. The sorceress cried out in pain, but the black algae quickly appeared and sealed her mouth shut. The woman, her skin like human skin, held the bone knife and examined it closely. Soon after, blood trickled from the corner of her eye, and a plaintive, mournful cry escaped her lips. "Brother Zhu," as the woman's skin gently murmured. The bone knife seemed to come alive, trembling incessantly, as if responding to her calls. The sorceress was still struggling. She did have some skill. Just as the woman's skin was rubbing against the bone knife, she actually tore the woman's hair off with one hand. Then, the sorceress's withered hand grabbed the hair covering her mouth and scratched it incessantly. Soon, that section of hair was also pulled apart. The sorceress began chanting strange scriptures incessantly. As the scripture appeared, the woman's skin wailed, and the hair binding the sorceress began to burn before finally turning into nothingness. The two people below the platform were shocked to witness this scene. Damn, this old guy is that powerful. Liu Chengfeng let out a strange cry, his eyes filled with uncertain emotions. Just as the sorceress was about to escape, he suddenly picked up a stone from the ground and hurled it at her. Whether by luck or fate, the small pebble, neither too big nor too small, fell right into the sorceress's mouth and got stuck in her throat. The sorceress's eyes widened as she clutched her throat and coughed incessantly. Just as she finally swallowed the pebble, the thick black hair behind her swept over her once more, and this time, the female ghost gave her no further chance. The sorceress was completely enveloped in thick black hair, which kept tightening, and tightening again. Amidst her black hair, the sorceress let out a shrill scream. The The voice sent chills down the spines of the two people in the audience. Towards the end, it sounded almost inhuman. Large amounts of blood seeped from the gaps in his black hair, flowing onto the bluestone floor of the high platform, and then continuously seeping downwards. Crunch, crunch, the sickening sound of bones cracking echoed continuously, assaulting their eardrums. They stared at the sorceress, whose black hair was tangled around her, and watched as the figure grew smaller and smaller until finally it turned into a ball of flesh. The fleshy ball is less than half the size of the original sorceress. Upon seeing this, both of them had the urge to turn around and run away. This human skin ghost is absolutely terrifying. The sorceress's screams ceased, but the air still retained a strong smell of blood and the ghostly sobs of the woman. Ning Qiushui did not leave immediately, not because he was not afraid, but because the female ghost still had something very important in her hand. The book I found in the fortune teller's bedroom. Only by obtaining this book can they safely enter the back mountain. And possibly rescue Bai Shaoxiu, who is still alive. Ning Qiushui has always been very attentive to her friends, since Bai Shaoxiu dared to risk entering their second blood gate and leading them to complete the mission. He couldn't possibly abandon her so easily when she encountered danger. Looking at the weeping, human-skinned female ghost, Ning Qiushui stepped forward and gritted her teeth, saying, "We've brought you the person you wanted, and now that you've taken your revenge, can we return the book to you? I need it to save my friend." After hearing Ning Qiushui's words, the human-skinned ghost, who was holding a bone knife and crying, suddenly raised her terrifying face. 2 lines of bloody tears slid down the corners of her eyes, and her eyes, which drooped outside her skin, stared straight at Ning Qiushui and the other person. Seeing that something was wrong, Liu Chengfen quickly tugged at Ning Qiushui's sleeve and whispered, "Damn, buddy, I think these women are looking at us strangely. Should we get out of here? Let's think of another way to deal with Sister Bai's matter. Now that the sorceress is dead, we can go to her place and search it carefully again. There might be other important clues there. If we die here now, then Sister Bai is doomed too." No sooner had he finished speaking than the human-skinned female ghost, who had been crying in the same spot, suddenly appeared in front of them, even though it wasn't the first time the two of them had seen it. Looking at the human-skinned ghost at such close range still made their hearts pound wildly and their whole bodies tense up. A terrifying chill spread from the human-skinned female ghosts' gaze to every corner of their bodies. Even though the sun was shining brightly overhead, they felt no warmth whatsoever. Could it be that this ghostly woman in human skin wants to repay kindness with enmity and kill them all? The moment this thought crossed her mind, even Ning Qiushui herself couldn't help but tremble slightly. Fortunately, after observing them for about 2 or 3 minutes, the human-skinned female ghost slowly reached out and returned the wet book to Ning Qiushui. Then it reached for the 2 drooping eyes on its face, and with a soft plop, the human-skin ghost ripped her eyes off and handed them to the 2 of them. Looking at the 2 eyeballs on her pale palm, Ning Qiushui swallowed hard, but gritted her teeth and put them away. Clearly, the ghost in human skin didn't want to harm them. Otherwise, they would be dead by now. Since the ghost and human skin didn't want to harm them, it means that those two eyeballs must have some other purpose. He gave one of the eyeballs to Liu Chengfeng, and as the two of them put away the human skin ghost's eyeballs, their vision suddenly blurred for a moment, and when they came to their senses again, the human skin ghost was gone. The dense black algae on the ground began to wither and turn into powder within seconds, visible to the naked eye. Ning Qiushui's heart stirred, and he slowly walked up to the high platform of Fanken Pond. He looked at the female ghost's skin in the pond water, which continued to rot and decay, eventually turning into a clump of silt and falling to the bottom of the pond. "Hey, buddy, what's wrong?" Liu Chengfeng stood below the platform and asked Ning Qiushui. Ning Qiushui shook her head. "It's nothing. She is gone." Liu Chengfeng naturally understood what Ning Qiushui meant by left. He let out a long breath, leaned against a tree, and closed his eyes to rest. This female ghost is quite clear about her grudges and gratitude. "When I was a child, my master was still alive. He told me that sometimes people are much scarier than ghosts. At that time, I just thought it was a joke. But as I grew up and ventured out into the world on my own, I realized that it really is true." The two recalled everything they had experienced in this village, and it seemed that it really was true. It wasn't the ghosts who wanted to kill them, but the people of this village. Ning Qiushui suddenly laughed. How ironic. He opened the book in his hand, looked at it carefully, and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. Liu Chengfeng noticed Ning Qiushui's unusual behavior and hurriedly asked, "Hey, buddy, what's wrong?" Ning Qiushui let out a long breath, calmed herself down, and handed the book to Liu Chengfeng. "See for yourself." As Liu Chengfeng flipped through the book and read about the truth of what happened back then, his eyes blazed with fury and his fists clenched tightly. Damn it, those Ruin family scum. How have they survived all these heinous crimes? Through the records in this book, the two learned about everything that had happened in the village over the past century. It turns out that the village did face a severe drought and famine more than 100 years ago. At that time, Gongshu's family, as the richest people in the village, had been distributing grain to help the villagers. It was because of their actions that the villagers' hearts began to lean towards Gongshu's family. This is not good news for Nguyen Kaihong, who is about to run for the next village chief, but he had no other choice. After all, in these times, when everyone could starve to death at any moment, he had to rely on the charity of Gongshu's family to survive. However, the good times didn't last long. After half a year of opening the granaries and distributing grain, even a wealthy family like Gongshu's was about to run out of food. Looking at his wife, children, and elderly parents, Guanshui had no choice but to make a painful decision to end the grain distribution. It was this decision that gave Nguyen Hoihong, who had always harbored malicious intentions, an opportunity. In fact, Ruin Kaiwang didn't need to do anything to inspire people. Most people in this world remember the bad and not the good. As Guangshuo stood outside his house and told the large group of villagers that he had no surplus grain and would no longer distribute grain, the way the villagers looked at him changed. That was the look of a wolf. "You used to feed us, But now you're not. Aren't we going to starve to death? Rounding it off, doesn't that mean you killed us? As hunger began to fester, the crowd's emotions gradually escalated. Doubt, greed, hatred. 2 days later, when everyone was so hungry they were dizzy, and had to start gnawing on tree bark and eating grass roots, Ruin Kaiwang stepped forward. He only said one sentence, a very concise sentence. Last night, I peered over the wall of Gongxu's house and saw his family eating meat. By the time everyone realized that Nguyen Kai Hong had lied to them, it was already too late. They have become the cruelest executioners in the village. Blood is on my hands and I can't wash it off. No villager dared to go and collect Gongxu's body. He lay in his own yard, his body already smashed beyond recognition by hoes, sickles and other tools, blood and splattered pieces of flesh covering most corners of the yard. The sunken head, with only one eye remaining, stared blankly at the sky, its gaze filled with nothing but fear and incomprehension. He really didn't understand. Why did these villagers kill him after he had exhausted almost all his savings to help them? Of course, no one knows why. On the very night after Guangxu died, the severe drought in the village ended. A torrential rainstorm descended from the sky. The villagers had been eagerly awaiting this much-needed rain. They cheered, cried out, and shouted. They forgot their crimes and everything they had done for their former saviors. Guangxu died, and the drought ended. Rumors began circulating in the village at some point, saying that Guangxu had been doing things that angered both heaven and man behind the scenes. He had built the Misty Rain Temple on the surface to worship the local earth god, but in reality, he was using the temple to hoard grain and valuables. This angered the gods, which was why a severe drought had struck. Of course, this rumor was also spread by Nguyen Kai Hong. He needed to use such methods to quickly destroy Gongxu's influence on the villagers. In the end, he succeeded. The villagers seemed to genuinely believe him, and he became the village chief as he had wished. Later, Ruin Kai Huang burned Gongxu's son, Guangxu's, to death at Yanyu Tower, and secretly kidnapped Gongxu's wife, Zhu Nanyu, intending to keep her as his own possession. Zhu Nanyu was beautiful from a young age, and even after having children, her appearance and figure did not change much. Coupled with her gentle and delicate wifely temperament, she naturally became a well-known beauty in the surrounding area. Ruin Kaiwang was different. He was born ugly. Not only were his facial features unattractive, but his teeth were also crooked. Before his parents died, they were always worried that Ruin Kaiwang would not be able to find a girl, so they searched everywhere for suitable women for him. However, when the girls saw Ruin Kaiwang's appearance, they would either shake their heads and leave directly, or they would finally agree to marry him. But Ruin Kaiwang would look down on them. After a while, Ruin Kaiwang's parents gradually gave up. After Gongxu's death, Ruin Kaiwang was immediately captivated by the tearful appearance of Zhu Nanyu, who was holding Gongxu's body and weeping in the courtyard. For the next few nights, he tossed and turned, unable to sleep, his mind filled with the lingering image of Zhu Nanyu's charming face. Driven by unbearable sexual urges, Ruin Kaiwang devised a scheme. The heavens were enraged and sent down divine lightning to burn down the misty rain temple, resulting in the deaths of Ju, Ningyu, and Guangchuan, who remained inside. But in fact, only Hirokawa was burned to death. Ju Nanyu was secretly kidnapped and hidden in the basement of his house. Over the next few months, Ju Nanyu suffered unspeakable torture and abuse. No matter how Ruin Kaiheng pleaded with him, Ju Nanyu refused to obey. Every time he saw Ruin Kaiheng, he would curse him until he was humiliated and tortured to the point of fainting. Finally, one day, Ruin Kaiheng felt that this was meaningless, or perhaps he had vented enough on Ju Nanyu and felt that women were just like that, when he was once again severely insulted by Ju Nanyu. Ruin Kaiheng finally got angry. All the anger and forbearance of the past erupted at this moment. He first cut off Ju Nanyu's tongue, then poisoned her to make her mute, and simply used wood ash to stop her bleeding. Ruin Kaiwang, whose mind was already extremely sick, came up with a new way to torture Ju Nanyu. He spent money to build a small pond for Ju Nanyu, and then called in the best butcher in the village. He first used chains to pierce Ju Nanyu's hands and feet to prevent her from moving around, and then slowly removed her bones. Seeing the look of immense pain on Ju Nanyu's pretty face, her mouth agape but unable to utter a sound, Ruin Kaiwang smiled happily. He experienced unprecedented satisfaction. Thus, Ju Nanyu's body was soaked in ice water, and most of his bones were shaved off before he finally bled to death. But this punishment did not end with Ju Nanyu's death. After Ju Nanyu's death, Ruin Kaiwang had the butcher complete the aftermath, and Ju Nanyu was skinned alive. Looking at the pool full of bright red blood, Ruin Kaiwang tossed a piece of gold to the butcher and turned to leave. About 2 weeks later, Ruin Kaiwang, who was looking for a new wife, accidentally learned that the butcher who had helped him skin and debone Ju Nanyu had died. He died a very tragic death. At first, Nguyen Kaiheng thought it was an accident. Later, when he started having terrifying dreams at night and strange things began to happen in the village, Ruin Kaihuang finally realized they were in big trouble. The dead have become vengeful spirits, returning for revenge. People started dying in the village. Every person who died had a very tragic death. Their eyes were almost bulging out of their sockets, bloodshot, and their expressions showed unimaginable terror, as if they had seen something extremely terrible before they died. As more and more people died, a strange atmosphere gradually spread throughout the village. Ruin Kaiwang knew that if things continued like this, it would be his turn sooner or later. But he was unwilling to give up the rights and respect he had earned with such difficulty. Finally, Nguyen Kaiheng spent a large sum of money to send a villager to a famous temple dozens of miles away to ask the monks for help, of course. The monks did not accept the money. One of the young monks, named Fa Hui, followed the villagers to Qiu village. As soon as he entered the village, he said one sentence to the villagers. The deceased's resentment is too great to be easily resolved. Either the villagers move away, or they all die here. Upon hearing this, the villager dared not delay any longer. He immediately took the young monk to find the village chief, Ruin Kaiwang. "Master, is there really no way?" Nguyen Kai Hong looked pale and kept telling the monk about his grievances. He told the monk that the Nguyen family had been the village chief for generations, and his ancestors had handed over the position to him. He absolutely could not allow the village to be invaded by evil spirits. Perhaps it was his outstanding acting skills, or perhaps the young monk was simply naive to the wickedness of human nature. But he believed Ruin Qiushui's words, and was moved by Ruin Qiushui's spirit of sacrificing himself to protect the villagers. At that moment, he loudly recited a Buddhist chant, Amitabha Buddha, if I don't go to hell, who will? Afterwards, the monk told Nguyen Hoi Hong that besides dispelling the resentment of the evil spirits in the village, there was another way to protect them. This method involves cutting off the monk's head, reattaching it using a special method, placing his body together with the bodies of the vengeful spirits in the village, building a temple, and inviting monks to chant sutras for 7 days and 7 nights. This way, he can suppress the evil spirits after his death with the help of Buddhist power. However, this method has a very important prerequisite. The monk's head must not be separated from his body. Once his head leaves his body, his power will completely vanish, and the suppressed evil spirit will reappear. Back then, Nguyen Kai Hong remembered this very well. So, until his death, he never allowed anyone else to approach the temple, and the monk's head never left his body. That period was probably one of the few peaceful times in the village. However, this period of time ended after Nguyen Kai Hong's son took over as village chief. He lacked authority and sensed the villagers' distrust of him. Many people in the village knew what his father had done back then, since they had all been involved. However, out of fear of Ruin Qiushui's methods and because of their own guilt, they couldn't face the past, so no one brought it up again. The nightmare of Qiu village truly began when Ruin Qiushui died and his son Ruin Xin took over as village chief. In order to subdue the villagers and keep his position as village chief, Ruin Xin went alone to the temple on the back mountain of the village and took off the monk's head. Now, trouble has struck the village again. With one death after another, Ruin Xin finally realized that he had committed a terrible crime. He went up the mountain in a panic, wanting to retrieve the monk's head. But when he returned to the temple, something terrifying happened. Ruin Xin noticed that the body of the monk who should have been sitting in the center of the temple had disappeared. Now he was completely panicked. Originally, Ruin Xin only wanted to take revenge on the villagers in this way, to make them feel fear, so that they would remember that it was their father who brought them peace. But who would have thought that once this happened, it would be impossible to stop it? In a panic, Ruin Xin immediately approached a villager and, imitating his father, instructed him to take the money to the temple to seek help again. However, this time, it failed. Decades have passed, and the temple has long since ceased to receive offerings. The monks have either died or left. When the villagers finally arrived at the temple, they discovered that it had become an empty temple. The villager returned to Qiu village with a heart full of despair. Terrible things continued to happen in the village. In the end, with no other choice, the villagers made the worst plan and prepared to move away from the village that gave them birth and raised them. No one would willingly leave their hometown if they had no other choice, especially since they didn't have much money. It was under these circumstances that the village saw a turning point. A woman appeared. She first inquired about the situation from the villagers. After understanding the situation, she surprisingly told Ruin Shin that she could help him solve the villagers' problems for free, but on the condition that Ruin Shin marry her. Of course, Ruin Shin was also unclear about the specific reasons. Of course, at that time, Ruin Shin had no choice at all. He was unwilling to give up the power in his hands, so he had no choice but to agree to try anything as a last resort and see what this woman was capable of. He never expected that after marrying this woman, the village would actually become peaceful soon after they entered the family. Unfortunately, their happiness was short-lived. Less than 2 years later, the woman died. She died in childbirth, but the child miraculously survived. It's a girl. This girl is now known as the sorceress. She was very smart from a young age and kept studying the things her mother left her. She also learned in detail about what happened back then from her father. 11 years later, Ruin Shin died of a heart attack, and the sorceress took over. By this time, she had already gained considerable prestige in the village. However, after she succeeded to the throne, she became even more outrageous than her father. Not only did she spread all sorts of rumors and slanders, but she also defamed the deceased for what happened back then. She also forced the villagers to hand over their wealth and grain to build various temples. In fact, most of these assets ended up in her own pocket. Even so, villagers still die mysteriously from time to time. As the village population gradually dwindled, the sorceress knew she couldn't let things continue like this. So she came up with a plan to have outsiders become the sacrificial offerings instead of the villagers. In this way, the resentment of the deceased can be temporarily appeased. From that year onward, the village has been continuously developing tourism. They have spent a lot of energy and money to create attractions, buy and open them to the public for visits during the annual sacrificial ceremonies. I must say, this method is really effective. Since the tourism industry started to flourish, no one has died in the village since. Oh, of course, they don't refer to the tourists who come to visit outside as people. They call them sacrifices. This is the whole truth about Q Village. These people are truly beasts. From top to bottom, from front to back, there isn't a single good person among them. Liu Chengfang cursed fiercely, his eyes bloodshot. Seemingly still not satisfied, he ran up and kicked the sorceress's fleshy mass hard, shattering it into pieces. Broken flesh and bones littered the ground. The strong smell of blood made the two feel uncomfortable. So they took the books and walked back, leaving aside whether this method is immoral or not. It's like drinking poison to quench thirst. Ning Qiushui sighed. Imagine more and more people die unjustly in the village, and the resentment will only grow stronger. One day, when it can no longer be contained, it will all be turned against these villagers. Do you remember what Sister Bai said? That sorceress has already started to suffer the backlash. Liu Chengfeng thought about the red-clad female ghost they had encountered behind the first blood gate and couldn't help but shudder. No wonder such terrifying, vengeful ghosts were born. It wasn't enough to slaughter one place. They had to go to other places to continue their rampage. The red-clad female ghost we encountered behind the first bloodgate must be a fusion of the resentment of dozens, or even hundreds, of people from Q village over the past 100 years. No wonder it was so ferocious, killing everyone in the entire villa area. Damn it, after knowing what these bastards have done, I don't even want to save them anymore. Ning Qiushui said, "We weren't originally going to save them. We need to find a way to save Sister Bai first, and then help the monk find his head. I think only the monk can suppress the resentment of Guangshu and these people who died unjustly. But now that the monk doesn't have a head, he can't do anything about it." When I returned to the guest house again, it was already afternoon. The two ate a quick meal, and then noticed the 3 men with glasses were also there. They looked terrible and had some injuries on their bodies. Fortunately, they were not seriously injured. When they saw Ning Qiushui and Liu Chengfeng return, but not by Xiaoxiao, the bespectacled man's face immediately darkened. After all, they took a huge risk to attract the sorceress, and even almost lost their lives. But in the end, they gained nothing, which inevitably made them feel somewhat discouraged. "No, you couldn't find Sister Bai?" That timid girl, Zong Fang, asked weakly. Ning Qiushui was silent for a moment. "We found her, but she's in very bad shape. Also, the sorceress is dead, which is great news for us." Upon hearing that the sorceress was dead, the expressions on everyone's faces finally softened considerably. After all, the one who had been trying to kill them in this village was the sorceress. Very good. The bespectacled man swung his fist fiercely. "Now that the sorceress is dead, we're safe." Liu Chengfeng, who was standing by the room window looking out, scoffed. "Safe? You're dreaming." The bespectacled man's face froze upon hearing this mockery, and then, somewhat confused, he said, "Isn't that so? It was the sorceress and the villagers who wanted to kill us. Now that the sorceress is dead, the villagers are leaderless, and we will naturally be much safer. Ningqi Waterway, why don't you think about it again? Why would the shaman and the villagers sacrifice us to those dead people?" Upon hearing Ning Qiushui's words, the bespectacled man was stunned for a moment, then seemed to realize what she meant, and a fine layer of sweat immediately appeared on his forehead. Yes, although it was the sorceress and the villagers of Q village who wanted to kill them, why would they attack outsiders if they hadn't been forced into this situation? Returning to the most fundamental issue, their real crisis still comes from the people who have died in those villages over the years. This book records a safe way to enter the mountains behind the village. We'll split into 2 groups. You go to find the monk's lost head, and we'll go to find Bai Zhaoxiu's body. After Ning Qiushui finished speaking, the 3rd member next to the bespectacled man began to speak. "Do we really have to waste time and energy saving her? I mean, she's been beheaded. There's absolutely no reason for her to be alive. At least there's a possibility, isn't there? What if we take a huge risk to bring her body out, only to find that she's still going to die? Wouldn't that mean we've done something completely meaningless? This member was a man who was usually quiet and reserved in the team. He didn't talk much, and Ning Qiushui and the other person didn't even have a good impression of him or know his name. His questioning caused a slight shift in the public's mindset. Indeed, this is a very heartless thing to do, abandoning a teammate, especially one who has contributed to the team. People will inevitably feel guilty, but now is no longer the time when we first entered this bloodgate. They had witnessed horrific scenes several times and nearly lost their lives here, under such intense pressure to survive. All they could think about now was finding a way out as quickly as possible and leaving this blood-red door alive. As for guilt and repentance, those can wait until later. Let's talk about surviving first. You can say this here without any psychological pressure because someone has already done the dangerous thing for you. I hope that when you're in danger, you can only watch helplessly as your teammates leave without looking back. Liu Changfen sneered, but the man simply replied casually, "But I'm not the one in danger right now, am I?" Upon hearing this, Liu Changfeng couldn't hold back any longer. He stood up abruptly, looking eager to fight, but Ning Qiushui pulled him back. "I've already told you how to get up the mountain. From now on, we'll go our separate ways, and no one will owe anyone anything." The man with glasses nodded. "Okay, thank you again for the book. We will do our best to find the head." As they got up to leave, the unnamed man glanced back at Ning Qiushui and her companion and sneered, "To idiots." After saying that, they left without looking back. Liu Chengfeng was furious and slammed his fist hard on the table. "Bang, that bastard. We shouldn't have shared the contents of this book with them." Ning Qiushui replied calmly, "Whether they like it or not, they have to help us, because if we can't find that head, everyone will be in danger. Let's get ready a bit. Now is the perfect time to head to the back mountain. We must get back before dark and return Sister Bai's body to her." Liu Chengfang nodded. They quickly gathered up the ropes and backpacks, making sure nothing was missing, and then walked through the woods to the foot of the mountain behind it. This is their first time here. Just as described in the book, the entire back mountain was shrouded in a faint red mist. Upon arriving at the foot of the mountain, Liu Changfeng couldn't help but shiver. Damn, why did it suddenly get so cold here? He muttered something, his eyes darting around uncomfortably. This was not his imagination, because Ning Qiushui also felt the temperature drop sharply the moment they approached the back mountain. This mountain is very tranquil. It was so quiet, it was almost eerie. A neatly constructed, long stone staircase wins its way up to the top of the mountain, penned. The two raised their heads, but their gazes could not penetrate the faint red mist, and they could not see what was on the mountain. They just vaguely felt very uncomfortable. It was as if something was coldly watching them from behind that red mist. Having already come this far, neither of them had any intention of turning back. They stepped onto the stone steps and prepared to climb them step by step. It was at this very moment that the situation changed dramatically. A terrifying scene unfolded as their feet touched the stone steps. The two were shocked to see that blood had suddenly flowed down the once clean and tidy stone steps. The nauseating, thick smell of blood also entered their nostrils. They looked up again and saw that the sky above was dark and covered by thick fog. The flowing blood was coming from the depths of the pale red fog at the end of the stone steps, where it was not clearly visible. Even more horrifying when they regained their senses. The blood-covered stone steps were littered with countless corpses lying haphazardly. Holy crap, buddy. What the hell is going on? Liu Chengfeng, the bearded man standing to the side, was so frightened that he swore again. He first pinched his leg hard, then lifted his foot and carefully smelled the sole of his shoe. Vomit. The pungent, sticky smell of blood almost made him vomit. Damn it, is this an illusion? Ning Qiushui stared at the blood flowing continuously down the stone steps, shook her head, and looked solemn. I'm afraid this is what the back mountain is really like. What we saw before might have been an illusion concealed by the power of the demon. The bearded man carefully followed Ning Qiushui step by step upwards. His eyes revealed an undisguised fear. Be careful not to step on these corpses, and stay as far away from them as possible. The scattered corpses on the stone steps were all headless. When Ning Qiushui searched among these corpses, she simply glanced at them and moved on. These corpses were all male corpses. Damn it, that bastard shaman. How many people has she killed? The two continued upwards from the foot of the mountain. When they reached about halfway up, they saw dozens of corpses. These corpses were not killed by ghosts. Ning Qiushui suddenly spoke up. Liu Chengfeng, who was standing to the side, asked, "How did you figure that out, buddy?" Ning Qiushui pointed to the severed neck of a corpse by the roadside. "Take a closer look. Isn't there black slime on it?" Liu Chengfeng took a look, and it was indeed true. Although these corpses had all been decapitated, the wounds on their necks were very smooth. They did not bleed much. Instead, they were covered with a thin layer of black fluid. In fact, the wounds on these corpses had already healed. This is it. Upon seeing this, Liu Chengfeng immediately thought of something. He thought of the human head sealed in a glass jar in the sorceress's residence. The necks of those heads were also covered with a thick layer of black substance. What's most terrifying is that these people who had their heads chopped off were still alive. What exactly is she trying to do? Liu Chengfen's legs were already shaking. Fortunately, he had brought a stick as a crutch when he came up. This allowed him to barely stand on the wet, sticky stone steps. Ning Qiushui pondered for a moment, seemingly having figured something out. "Do you remember what Sister Bai told us? The shaman's body has already suffered problems due to the backlash from the spirits. When we first met the sorceress, I smelled a rotten odor on her, and there were red bumps on her neck, making it look like that area had started to rot. I'm wondering if the sorceress is trying to use some strange, evil magic to give herself a new body." Although the book found in the room contained no record, his guess made Liu gasp in shock. He had also seen the red bumps around the shaman's neck. At first glance, it looks as if the spot was a bloodstain left by someone cutting it open. Ning Qiushui's guess is very likely true. Keep up the good work. Once we find Sister Bai's body, the truth should come out. Despite their fear and nausea, The two finally reached the top of the mountain. Fortunately, the headless corpses on the road did not turn into zombies or cause trouble. They just lay quietly in the blood, motionless. Although the scene was very creepy, they did not pose a real threat to the two of them. At the end of the stone steps was a huge platform in a dense forest. In the middle of that forest was a temple overgrown with vines and wild grass. The blood that kept flowing down the stone steps was from the walls and bricks of this temple. Inside the temple, there were also many headless corpses. These corpses were strung up like dried meat and hung from the temple's ceiling. They were swaying as if being dried in the wind. These corpses were much fresher than those lying on the steps. It was obviously something the sorceress had done not long ago. Ning Qiushui quickly located Bai Zhoxiu's body by her clothing. Things went smoothly, but he always had a vague feeling that something was not quite right. After removing the body from the ceiling, Ning Qiushui asked Liu to check the situation. While he checked, she slowly pulled down the body's pants. On the snow-white left buttock of this body, there was indeed a dagger-shaped birthmark. Ning Qiushui pulled up Bai Zhoxiu's pants and, together with Liu, tied the body up with a rope. They weren't doing this out of a fetish, but because they were worried it might move. They didn't want to be hindered or even threatened while descending the mountains. After finishing this task, Ning Qiushui had Liu carry Bai Zhoxiu's body on his shoulder. She looked around the temple. The unease in her heart grew stronger and stronger. Something's not right. Something's not right. Ning Qiushui forced herself to calm down, her eyes constantly searching around. He always felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't figure it out. This feeling suddenly came to him while he was searching for the body. So what exactly is the problem? Just then, Ning Qiushui caught a glimpse of a corpse in the corner of the wall. It was that one glance that sent shivers down his spine. He finally realized what was wrong. That corpse had a head. Moreover, its entire body looked as if it had been smashed to pieces. Bloody flesh stuck together, making it extremely gruesome. It lay in the corner, staring at the two with an extremely exaggerated and bizarre smile. Run. Ning Qiushui didn't say a word of nonsense and shouted at Liu. But just as they turned around, the temple doors slammed shut. Behind them, terrifying footsteps echoed. Snap, da-da, snap. Upon hearing the footsteps, the two people in the darkness felt as if their souls were frozen in place. Hey bro, what do we do now? Liu Chengfeng's voice was trembling violently. He felt that his mind was completely blank. Ning Qiushui did not reply to him, but she had already grasped the bronze mirror that Bai Zhoxia had left for her. If there's anything left that could save their lives, it's this bronze mirror. He had personally witnessed the power of this bronze mirror at the never-dry well. Bai Zhoxia simply shone the bronze mirror on the well, and all the vengeful spirits at the bottom of the well were driven away. Of course, Ning Qiushui also knew that the fierce ghost in the temple at this moment was far superior to the things below the undry well. This guy must be Hiroshi. He's got so much resentment. The footsteps behind them grew closer and closer, as if they were being trampled on their hearts, each step seemingly about to crush them. Thump, clatter, thump. Fear continued to fester with each step of their footsteps. Ning Qiushui gripped the bronze mirror tightly in her hand, her palms already sticky with sweat. Finally, the footsteps stopped behind him. Then came a long, silent, deathly stillness. The feeling of waiting for judgment in the dark is absolutely awful. Even someone with a strong mental fortitude like Ning Qiushui felt cold sweat seeping from every pore of her body. He knew that the terrifying thing was right behind him, staring intently at him. Ning Qiushui desperately wanted to turn his head, but he couldn't move at all. The blood jade on her chest was constantly radiating intense heat, almost burning Ning Qiushui's skin. Ning Qiushui had no idea just how terrifying the ghost behind her was, that it could make the blood jade emit such high temperatures as if it were about to melt, hungry. The sound was like bubbles squeezed out from deep in the throat, shrill, weak and hoarse, yet it pierced the eardrums of the two like steel needles. In that instant, Ning Qiushui felt a darkness before her eyes and almost fainted. At that moment, something cold and sharp pressed against his back. That thing cut open the skin on Ning Qiushui's back, causing her to feel a sharp pain. It was at this moment that the bronze mirror that had been dormant in his palm awoke. Wah! In the darkness, a woman's sobbing voice suddenly rang out. The moment that voice rang out, the two people who were already feeling somewhat cold suddenly felt a bone-chilling cold. They shuddered violently, only then realizing they could move again. Big Beard, hurry up and open the door. Ning Qiushui practically shouted it out. Liu Chengfeng naturally knew that the female ghost could not buy them much time. He suddenly shook himself up, strode forward, and then forcefully smashed open the temple door. The light from outside shone in. The two, who were almost suffocating, finally smelled the breath of life. They rushed out of the temple without looking back and ran down the mountain. Before descending the mountain, Ning Qiushui looked back once. He saw a female ghost in a wedding dress standing in front of Guangshu, her red figure fading at a visible speed. Guangshu remained standing in the same spot, as if blocked by the female ghost, but on her shattered and cracked, terrifying face. A pair of blood-red eyes were staring intently at the two people descending the mountain. The resentment in his eyes was almost overflowing. Quick, Ning Qiushui urged loudly again. Liu Chengfeng, who was running at the front carrying Bai Zhaoxiu's body, heard Ning Qiushui's urging and sped up again. He gasped for breath, not daring to look back, and ran wildly. Ning Qiushui ran behind Liu Chengfeng when he suddenly heard a cracking sound coming from his hand. He looked down and found that the bronze mirror had been completely shattered. The female ghost in the wedding dress in the mirror also disappeared at that moment. His heart sank to the bottom. I originally thought this thing might be usable a second time, but now it seems its durability has reached its limit. If Guangshu catches up at this moment, they will surely die. Thinking of this, Ning Qiushui looked back again, and with just one glance, his heart clenched tightly. Behind them, on the mountaintop, Guangshu had actually walked out of the temple and stood atop the blood-stained stone steps, coldly watching the two of them. Although its feet didn't move, Every second its body would appear on the next small platform of the 9 steps. This speed was undeniably fast. The 2 who were running downhill dared not run too fast for fear of falling. It took them at least 2 seconds to descend every 9 steps. Liu Chengfeng, faster. It's catching up, Ning Qiushui shouted. Liu Chengfeng, who was running ahead, screamed pitifully. That's already top speed, buddy. You can't run anymore. Ning Qiushui sped up and pulled Bai Zhaoxiu off Liu Chengfeng's shoulder. Although Bai Zhaoxiu wasn't heavy, and with the loss of her head, she weighed only a little over 100 pounds. A normal person carrying something weighing 100 pounds wouldn't be able to run for very long. Fortunately, Ning Qiushui was in good physical condition, and it was much easier for him to carry Bai Zhaoxiu's body and run away than for Liu Chengfeng. Since the distance between the top of the mountain and the foot of the mountain was not long, the 2 quickly ran down the stone steps. They dared not look back or stop, and plunged into the woods. Suddenly, 3 figures appeared ahead. Ning Qiushui looked up and saw that it was the bespectacled man and his group run. However, Ning Qiushui still shouted at them. The 3 of them were clearly confused, and were momentarily dumbfounded as they watched Ning Qiushui and Liu Chengfeng running towards them recklessly. What's going on? While they were still in a daze, Ning Qiushui and Liu Chengfeng had already brushed past them. Run! Ning Qiushui didn't turn her head, but shouted again. At this moment, everyone moved. On the one hand, a strong herd mentality aroused their inner fears. On the other hand, they saw Guangshu, whose body was covered in cracks and whose bloody flesh was exposed, as if he would fall apart at any moment. Grass. The bespectacled man cursed under his breath, but still followed behind Ning Qiushui and the other man. Since they were running behind, it seemed that they attracted Guangshu's hatred. So Guangshu stopped chasing Ning Qiushui and Liu Chengfeng directly and turned his attention to them. Fuck your mother, Ning Qiushui. The man running at the very back roared at Ning Qiushui, his eyes revealing ferocity and fear. Unlike the others, they were injured in the village this morning while trying to seduce the sorceress, and he just happened to be injured in the leg. At that moment, coupled with his inner tension and fear, he couldn't run at all, and could only watch helplessly as the 4 people in front of him got further and further away. Help me, I'm still behind you. Lu Tink felt the increasingly cold aura behind him. In terror, he stretched out his hand and screamed in panic. However, those in front were only concerned with escaping for their lives. Who would look back? Lu Ting finally understood what Ning Qiushui had said earlier. He was unwilling to risk his life for his teammates, and now his teammates are unwilling to risk their lives for him. He was abandoned. Lu Ting gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with resentment. These damn bastards actually abandoned him and ran away to save their own lives. I've also done my part for the team. How dare they? What gives them the right? Damn it. None of them are reliable when it matters. He cursed inwardly, but dared not stop for a moment. Even with his leg injury, he limped forward. However, as El Ting ran, he suddenly sensed something was wrong. It seems. My body is getting lighter and lighter. This feeling came very suddenly. but once it appeared, it never disappeared. Lu Ting was still running forward with all his might, but his body was getting lighter and lighter. In the end, he felt like a light feather without any weight. Lu Ting could no longer feel his own body. He stared ahead in terror, his eyes wide, as if he had witnessed something utterly horrifying. There was a headless corpse, dressed exactly like him, stumbling and running forward. The body hadn't run far before it collapsed to the ground and remained motionless, hungry. He heard a terrifying bubbling sound in his ears. That wasn't the bubbling sound a normal human makes. It was more like the strange sound of a long-neglected machine suddenly starting up again, the knob rubbing against the rust. A bloody, mangled hand was holding L Ting by the hair, slowly turning his face away. Lu Ting finally saw just how terrifying the person chasing him looked. He opened his mouth wide in terror, but no sound came out. "Hurry, it's getting dark." Ning Qiushui was panting. He had been carrying Bai Zhouxiu's body for so long, and even he was exhausted, but he dared not stop. The setting sun in the distance is slowly descending. The last rays of the setting sun were gradually shifting toward the horizon. He had to get to the sorceress's mansion as quickly as possible and return Bai Zhouxiu's body to her head. "Big Beard, go open the door," Ning Qiushui shouted, and Liu Chengfeng immediately ran to the front, kicked open the shaman's door, and then went to the corner of the house. To the outside of that inconspicuous little room, he inserted a wire into the keyhole and tried to unlock it. Fortunately, he was very skilled in this technique, and even without seeing, he quickly opened the iron chain by sound and touch alone. Ning Qiushui went to the corner, immediately took out the transparent glass jar containing Bai Zhouxiu's head, and said to her, "Sister Bai, we've brought your body back. What do we do now?" Inside the transparent glass jar, Bai Zhouxiu's alluring pale face appeared exceptionally stiff, and her eyes gradually became empty and stagnant. Compared to the daytime, she now resembled a lifeless statue. Seeing that she was not in a good mood, Ning Qiushui quickly patted the glass jar and called her name loudly several times. "Bai Zhouxiu, Bai Zhouxiu, can you hear me?" Perhaps Ning Qiushui's patting had an effect, for inside the glass jar, Bai Zhouxiu's stiff eyes finally moved slowly. She stared at Ning Qiushui outside, and after a moment, she spoke in an extremely weak voice. You're back." Ning Qiushui glanced back at the setting sun, panting, and shouted loudly to Bai Zhouxiu, "We've brought your body back. Now what are we going to do?" Bai Zhouxiu replied, "Smash the glass and put my head back onto my body." Clang. As Bai Zhouxiu finished speaking, Ning Qiushui slammed the glass tube hard against the ground. The fragile bottle shattered instantly, spilling a large amount of liquid onto the ground. Bai Zhouxiu's head was then held in Ning Qiushui's hands. Without any delay, he and Liu Chengfeng quickly put Bai Zhouxiu's head back onto her body. At that moment, the severed neck and the severed body sections of the head came into contact and immediately stuck together. On Bai Zhouxiu's slender neck, only a faint red mark remained, as if she had just been tied by a rope. As the sun set, She lay in Ning Qiushui's arms and finally opened her eyes. Her eyes, as clear as water, trembled slightly, as if a drop of water had fallen into a lake, disturbing the mirror-like calm before they shone with light and brilliance. With a soft moan from Bai Xiao, the two finally breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that she was alive. Holy crap, that scared me to death. Sister Bai, we almost thought you weren't going to make it. When Liu Chengfang saw that Bai Xiao had finally woken up, he wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and gasped for breath. Bai Xiao thanked the two of them and gently stood up, supporting herself on her hands from Ning Qiushui's embrace. She looked at the setting sun in the distance and smiled bitterly. This blood-red gate is indeed dangerous. I thought I was being very careful, but I still almost crashed. After she finished speaking, she looked at the two of them with an indescribable gratitude in her eyes. In the ghost house, people willing to risk their lives to save you are extremely rare. Of course, besides gratitude, she also felt a slight, almost imperceptible shyness towards Ning Qiushui. She knew that in the temple on the mountain, Ning Qiushui had pulled down her pants and seen her buttocks. Of course, people who frequently experience life and death don't care about these things as much as ordinary people, so she quickly regained her composure. Where are the others? Bai Xiao asked a question. Most of them are dead. If nothing unexpected happens, there are probably only 5 people left now. Liu Chengfeng's expression darkened considerably when the number of survivors was mentioned. There were 14 of them when they came in, but in just 5 days, less than half of them are left. Only 2 days remain. If they cannot help the monk who bestowed the peace find his way back in these last 2 days, they will face the reckoning of Guangshu, who has become a vengeful ghost, and all the vengeful spirits who have died in the past 100 years. By the way, do you guys think Guangshu will follow us here? Liu Chengfeng looked anxiously at the gate behind him. His concerns are not unfounded. The Guang family already harbored deep hatred for the Nguyen clans. Now that Guangzhou can leave the temple, the first thing he will likely do is seek revenge against the sorceress. I think what we need to worry about might not just be Guangzhou. After Liu Chengfeng's reminder, Ning Qiushui's expression suddenly turned serious. She looked around as if searching for something. Qiushui, what's wrong? Bai Xiao also noticed that Ning Qiushui was acting strangely. Ning Qiushui slowly opened her mouth and said something that sent chills down their spines. Following your directions, we found the book in the shaman's bedroom. Just as we were about to leave, the shaman returned, and what followed was a fierce chase between us. When we escaped, the gate of the sorceress's house should have been opened. In order to snatch the book from us as quickly as possible, she wouldn't have had time to turn back and close the gate before continuing to chase us. And villagers generally don't come to this place. So, during the time we were away from the sorceress's house, who exactly came in? As Ning Qiushui finished speaking, the hairs on both of their brows tightened suddenly. They also looked warily into the surrounding darkness, as if something might suddenly leap out from those inconspicuous little corners at any moment. No matter what, let's get out of here first. The 3 of them immediately left the sorceress's residence. On the way by, Xiaoxa learned about the shaman's death and told the two of them, "Let me see the eyeballs that the human-skinned ghost gave you." Ning Qiushui and Liu Chengfang did not refuse and handed the two eyeballs to Bai Xiaoxiu directly. Having gone through these past few days, they have built a high level of trust in each other. Bai Xiaoxiu held the human-skinned female ghost's eyeballs and examined them carefully for a while, then suddenly said, "It shouldn't be a ghost artifact. Ghost artifacts are usually sold individually and are not disassembled into parts." Liu Chengfeng asked, puzzled, "Not a ghost artifact. Doesn't this mean this thing is useless?" Bai Xiaoxiu shook her head and said seriously, "That's not quite right. It's not a ghost artifact. It's just that you can't bring blood through the gate. But these two eyes must have a very important function. Otherwise, the female ghost wouldn't have given them to you before she left. Moreover, since these are special items given to you by the female ghost, only you can use them. Even if others get them, they will be useless to you." He returned the eyeballs to the two of them. Ning Qiushui held the eyeballs in her hand and examined them carefully, seemingly lost in thought. Soon, they returned to the guest house, which was formerly known as the Misty Rain Temple. "Are we really going back to this god-forsaken place? Didn't they say this place isn't clean? Should we make do with the cafeteria for the night?" It was the first time they had stood in an open space at night, looking around at their dwelling. It's a very strange feeling. The three of them felt that the place they were staying was eerily gloomy. Those dark windows always felt like mouths, ready to devour them alive. The man with glasses and the others haven't come back either. The room where the bespectacled man lived wasn't much different from theirs. Ning Qiushui glanced out the window and found that there were no lights on, and the curtains and windows hadn't been touched at all. Pli guessed that either the three men with glasses were all killed by Guangshu, or they discovered something and left. It's better not to go back. It's probably not safe inside. Ning Qiushui took out the blood jade. The closer she got to the guest house Yanyu temple, the more intense the red light emitted by the blood jade became. Clearly, there's something unclean in the guest house. Let's go to the cafeteria. If nothing unexpected happens, everyone else will be there too. By this time, it was completely dark, and strange things were wandering around the village. It would be very unsafe to continue wandering outside, so the three decided to go to the canteen, which used to be the guest house, to spend the night. Upon arriving at the cafeteria, I could see the lights were on from a distance. This glimmer of light added a few precious moments of life to the otherwise desolate and empty cafeteria. Upon arriving at the cafeteria, they entered the room with the lights on and saw the bespectacled man and the timid girl, Zongfang, staring at each other in silence. Bai Xiaoxiu, seeing Bai Xiaoxiu appear so lifelike in front of him, the bespectacled man was pleasantly surprised. He hadn't seen this woman for a while, and the current situation was critical. It was better to have one more person than one less. Moreover, Bai Xiaoxiu is meticulous and has a good mental fortitude. She remains calm and composed when faced with problems, making her a valuable member of the team. Tell me about the situation where you are first. In response to Bai Jiaoxu's question, the bespectacled man nodded, his face turning slightly pale, and said, "He's dead." At that time, that terrifying ghost chased us down from the mountains. We all ran for our lives, and no one paid any attention to him. Later, we returned to the guest house and waited for a long time, but he didn't appear. Instead, we saw a small ghost with its body burned to a crisp, only half of its body remaining. When the scene at the guest house Yanyu Temple was mentioned, both the bespectacled man and Zongfang were trembling slightly, clearly still shaken from the terrifying experience. Fortunately, the ghost didn't seem to have much killing intent towards them. Its main purpose was to wander around the building, searching for something. Otherwise, they would have been dead by now. The situation is now very clear. With the death of the sorceress, the vengeful spirits that were previously suppressed in Keiyu village are now subject to even fewer restrictions. They can no longer restrain themselves and want to carry out a terrible massacre in Keiyu village. Upon hearing Bai Jiaoxiu's words, Zongfang's tears immediately streamed down her face. She covered her mouth tightly, trying her best not to make a sound. Despair spread through everyone's hearts. So does that mean we're doomed? Liu Chengfang slumped onto the stool like a rag doll, his eyes somewhat vacant. He's not necessarily dead. Bai Jiaoxiu crossed her arms and then said something that brought hope to everyone. The mission behind the Blood Gate has a 7-day time limit, which means that the ghosts in this world will definitely be bound by the rules of the Blood Gate within 7 days, and they cannot really slaughter us without restraint. Otherwise, given Ganshu's abilities and resentment, we wouldn't have survived until now. The problem now is how to find the lost head of that monk, the compassionate one, as quickly as possible tomorrow and the day after, and then return it to him. Only when the compassionate one takes his own head can he bring peace to the village. Wow, you make it sound so easy. The village is so big. How are we supposed to find his head? Who knows where they threw it, with only 5 of us? How could we possibly find the monk's head within 2 days? We can't find it. We're doomed. Wire under. The intense fear and despair, Zongfang, a girl who was not very brave to begin with, began to have an emotional breakdown. No one spoke, nor did they blame her. Actually, they had a pretty good impression of this little girl. Although she was very timid and often cried, she never flinched. Whether she was looking for clues at tourist attractions or going up the back mountain, even though she was very scared, she always gritted her teeth and followed the man with glasses. Moreover, given the current situation, Zongfang really can't be blamed. Zongfang is right. If we just search aimlessly, we will never find the monk's head in 2 days. Ning Qiushui, who had been silent all along, spoke up at this moment. There must be clear clues regarding the monk's head. We must have overlooked something very important. Everyone, think about it carefully. The room fell silent for a while. Although they didn't have much hope, they still tried their best to recall everything they had experienced since they entered the Blood Gate. Is anything missing? It seems not. Not only did they miss nothing, they even felt as if they hadn't done anything at all during those 5 days. And so, the atmosphere of frustration grew stronger in the silence of the crowd. Finally, at a certain moment, Ning Qiushui once again took out the eye that the human-skinned female ghost had given him. The female ghost didn't tell her how to use the item, and the bloodgate wouldn't give her any hints either. But at this moment, Ning Qiushui seemed to have figured something out, and inexplicably put her eyes on the table. The crowd didn't understand what he was trying to do, but they still watched him. After a brief silence, the female ghost's eyeballs, which Ning Qiushui had placed on the table, actually started to move. Upon seeing this, everyone immediately perked up. "Quick, bearded man, give me the other eyeball too," Ning Qiushui said to Liu Chengfeng, who nodded and hurriedly took out the other eyeball and handed it to Ning Qiushui. Ning Qiushui placed her two eyeballs together, and after the eyeballs moved around for a while, they discovered that both eyeballs were looking in the same direction, and that direction was actually inside Q Village. Is this a clue that the monk's head is currently in the prayer for Rain Village? Zongfang asked softly. Ning Qiushui shook her head. "I'm not entirely sure, but it's possible. After all, ghosts might be able to see what we can't. We helped the female ghost fulfill her wish for revenge, and these eyes might be her way of repaying us. In any case, we have to go to Q Village tomorrow morning." Everyone nodded. Having a goal is much better than searching aimlessly like a headless fly. After all, Q Village is not small. If they really dug 3 feet into the ground, let alone 2 more days, even if they were given 2 more months, they would not be able to do it. The group arranged for night watch with Ning Qiushui on the first shift. After everyone else had fallen asleep, Ning Qiushui, feeling bored, took out the ancient book he had found earlier in the sorceress's mansion. He carefully examined it for a long time before finally finding some details within it. The art of grafting flowers onto trees. Upon first seeing those words, Ning Qiushui felt a jolt in his eyelids. He carefully examined the ancient book, and the more he read, the more terrified he became. It turns out that the body the sorceress is currently using is not her original body at all. Through this evil method, she grafted her head onto someone else's body, then through the headless body, now imbued with her own aura, up the mountain for Guangshu to vent his anger on, making him briefly believe that he had killed her, thus slightly calming his resentment. Although ghosts are products born after a person dies, they are not as simple as human souls. Most of them are far less intelligent than humans. At least, Guangshu was deceived by the sorceress in this way for more than 20 years. Of course, paper can't ultimately keep fire out of the fire. Even if Guangshu was incredibly stupid, after being fooled for over 20 years, he should have seen through the deception by now. Moreover, as the sorceress continued to use this evil magic of substitution, she was horrified to discover that her own head was gradually rotting. Each time she takes on a new body, her head becomes more decayed and duller. The fortune teller believed this was caused by a mismatch between the head and the body. So, from that moment on, she frantically searched for a more suitable body, and the number of jars containing human heads piled up in the mansion grew. No wonder the villagers are so afraid of her. A very soft female voice suddenly appeared from behind Ning Qiushui. He turned round and saw that it was Bai Xiao. She had been standing behind him for a long time. "Isn't Sister Bai sleeping?" Bai Xiao sat down next to Ning Qiushui, took out her phone, turned on the screen, and waved it in front of Ning Qiushui. "It's already 2 in the morning. It's my turn to keep watch. You go to sleep." Ning Qiushui glanced at Bai Zuxio's phone screen, which displayed a picture of a very beautiful young woman. This woman is even more beautiful than Bai Zuxio. She is an extremely rare beauty. Moreover, her temperament is quite different from Bai Zixio's. She lacks Bai Zixio's charming maturity and has more of a quirky and innocent charm. "Is she gardenia?" Ning Qiushui blurted it out. Bai Zhaoxiao seemed surprised that Ning Qiushui would ask this question. Nor did she expect that Ning Qiushui would know about Zhaozi. She was momentarily stunned. After a moment, she murmured, "Anne, yes, can you tell me her story? I'm not very sleepy right now." Mentioning this familiar old friend, a stinging pain, impossible to conceal, surfaced deep in Bai Zhaoxiao's eyes. She knew that Zizi was a very sentimental girl, but she never imagined that such a lively and cheerful girl as Zizi would actually commit suicide for love. She used to be very timid, much like Zhongfang, but she was very proactive in everything she did, including searching for clues to survival. I entered the Blood Gate with her at that time, and it was basically Zizi who pulled me along to search for clues to survival. Even when she was scared to tears, she would grit her teeth and keep going. Everyone liked her humor and liveliness. At that time, there were quite a few people in the ghost house, 15 of them. I was very shy and afraid of them, and it was Jizzy who helped me quickly integrate into the group. Therefore, I have always been grateful to her. We quickly became good friends. She was very adaptable and was very suitable for the misty world. At that time, I had a severe phobia of ghosts. Almost every few days, Zizi would drag me into the low difficulty Blood Gate to complete the mission and help me overcome my fear. She told me that this was the fastest way to improve my abilities. Thanks to Zizi's unremitting help, I gradually adapted to this bizarre world. Those were the happiest times of my life. We ate together, watched TV together, chatted together, and even went to the world behind the Blood Gate to grind dungeons. Bai Zhaoxiao spoke softly, unhurriedly, her voice flowing like water, completely immersed in her memories. A faint smile graced her delicate face. The light from the phone screen shone on her face, and Ning Qiushui could see a surge of nostalgia in Bai Zhaoxiao's eyes. It's clear that she truly cherishes this past time. We thought these wonderful days would continue forever. But then, something unexpected happened at the ghost house. When the incident that happened at the ghost house was mentioned, Bai Zhaoxiao's expression began to change. It was a look of fear. Seeing Bai Zhaoxiao's expression, Ning Qiushui couldn't help but feel curious about what had happened in the ghost house back then. In his mind, Bai Zhaoxiao was a very calm and composed woman. She had experienced many life and death crises. Regardless of her experience, her mental fortitude alone was far beyond that of ordinary people. However, even someone as calm as Bai Zhaoxiao felt scared at this moment. But Bai Zhaoxiao, on the other hand, didn't seem to want to explain the matter clearly, only vaguely stating, "After that incident, most of the people in the ghost house died. Almost all the old people died, and we had to take their place, while also inheriting their will. And occasionally we would go to some dangerous blood gates to complete missions, although Bai Jiaxiu did not specify what this matter was. Ning Qiushui could guess that it was related to the puzzle piece in the ghost house. They were after that puzzle piece." Bai Jiaxiu remained silent for a long time before finally nodding slowly. She sighed. "What would happen if we didn't deliberately pursue this puzzle piece?" Ning Qiushui then asked another question that he was particularly concerned about. Bai Jiaxiu glanced at Ning Qiushui, a bitter smile appearing on her lips. "I know what you want to ask. Anyway, as long as everyone keeps participating in low difficulty Bloodgate missions, the survival rate will be greatly guaranteed, especially after obtaining the ghost artifact. It's almost impossible to fail. You must think so, right?" Ning Qiushui nodded. "That's true." Bai Jiaxiu sighed. "In the Misty World, every chosen one must pass through 9 bloodgates. The first 3 bloodgates are separated by a week, the 4th to 6th by 6 months, and the 7th to 9th by a year. Each bloodgate is more difficult than the previous one. Of course, your special case is an exception. According to statistics, the mortality rate for the 7th gate is already as high as 95.796%, not to mention the 8th and 9th bloodgates, which are almost certain death. Therefore, in order to leave this place and escape the curse before the 7th bloodgate arrives, every member of the ghost house will try every means to collect puzzle pieces. The puzzle pieces will only appear after the 4th difficulty level of the bloodgate. Only those who obtain the complete puzzle piece of the ghost house can gain the qualification to go to the end of the Misty World." Ning Qiushui frowned. "What lies at the end of the Misty World?" Bai Jiaxiu shook her head, a look of confusion appearing in her originally clear eyes. "I don't know. No one who enters the end of the Misty World has ever come out. If that's the case, why are you so sure that once you enter the end of the Misty World, you can break the Bloodgate curse?" Faced with Ning Qiushui's pointed question, Bai Jiaxiu remained silent for a long time. "Sometimes we don't necessarily have to be sure that's the truth. Humans are very fragile creatures. We always need to find a reason to live, don't we?" Ning Qiushui and Bai Jiaxiu looked at each other for a while and then nodded. "That's true, that's true. Rather than facing the near 100% mortality rate of the 7th bloodgate, it's better to try to gather the puzzle pieces and go to the end of the Misty World to see what's there. Even if you die, at least you can satisfy your curiosity before you die. For the cursed people in the haunted house, the puzzle pieces are more of a psychological comfort and a hope for survival. For a group of people living in despair, nothing is more precious than hope." Ning Qiushui didn't ask any further questions about the disputes between Bai Jiaxiu and the other ghost houses. Firstly, he can't help right now. Secondly, Ning Qiushui doesn't like to get involved in messy situations. As for whether Bai Jiaxiu needs his help, that's another matter. All right, it's almost 3 o'clock. We've been chatting for so long. You should go to sleep. There's a tough battle to fight tomorrow. Ning Qiushui nodded. He roughly understood the situation he would face next. He got up and went to his room to rest. Behind her, Bai Zhaoxiu rested her chin on one hand, tilting her head to look at Ning Qiushui's back, her eyes slightly lost in thought. It was unclear what she was thinking. Finally, the 6th day dawned. The group wasn't in a particularly good mood because they had to keep watch last night, and because Guangzhou, the supposed big boss of the Bloodgate, had come down from the top of the back mountain. Everyone had a nagging feeling and didn't dare to sleep too soundly. At dawn the next day, everyone arrived early at the dining hall to wait for a proper breakfast before heading to the village to search for the head of the monk, the compassionate one. But today, things are a bit strange. The cafeteria staff, who should have been working much earlier, were unexpectedly absent today. The group waited from around 5 a.m. until 9 a.m., but no staff members came to the cafeteria. This sudden and strange situation cast a shadow over everyone's hearts, and something felt wrong everywhere. What's going on today? Why hasn't anyone come to cook? After the sorceress died, they stopped even putting on the show. Right, having not slept well all night and starving. Liu Chengfeng glared and cursed angrily. He arrived at the entrance of the cafeteria, glanced at the road in the distance, and after confirming that no one was coming, he seemed to lose his last bit of patience and ran to the kitchen. A short while later, Liu Chengfeng came out carrying a pot of porridge. Hey, that's all the food left in the house. Just make do with this. After Liu Chengfeng finished speaking, he burped. It has a braising flavor. Seeing the strange looks from everyone, Liu Chengfeng coughed a few times, his face turning slightly red. I ate an extra braised egg. I really searched high and low for ages to find it. No one blamed him. After all, they wouldn't have had breakfast if it weren't for Liu Chengfeng. After quickly filling their stomachs, the group packed their belongings and headed into the village. The weather wasn't good today. It was already rather gloomy. As soon as everyone entered the woods, thunder rumbled overhead, and then it started to drizzle. Ticked, the light rain pattered against the leaves, creating a dense, crackling sound that made everyone somewhat uneasy. They pushed aside the thickets and finally arrived at the village entrance, only to be stunned by the horrifying sight inside. The people standing at the village entrance discovered that the village was shrouded in a torrential rain. The raindrops poured down like a torrential downpour, threatening to flood the entire village. Even more terrifying was that both the crimson color and the stench wafting through the air indicated to everyone that the torrential rain in the village was blood. Bo Pai Long Wei. Liu Chengfeng finally couldn't hold back and uttered a curse in his hometown dialect. Although the crowd couldn't understand what he was saying, they knew he was swearing. I don't want to go in. At this moment, Zongfang, who was already somewhat nervous, immediately went weak in the knees when she saw the village shrouded in blood rain. She squeezed her legs together tightly to prevent herself from urinating. Those who witnessed this scene turned extremely pale. The blood of kind-hearted people dried up and turned into sweet rain. At this moment, everyone remembered the message on the blood gate before they entered it. Is Guangshu in the village? Mentioning this name sent a chill down the spines of not only the bespectacled man and Zongfang, but even Liu Chengfeng. Clearly, yesterday's events have left them with severe psychological trauma. Damn, buddy, you need to think this through. If that thing is inside, going in would be like lambs to the slaughter. Ning Qiushui did not give an immediate reply. The village in front of her was now stained with a terrible crimson color in almost every corner. Clearly, Guangshu had already been to the village. If Guangshu is gone, why is it still raining blood in the village? If Guangshu hadn't left, wouldn't going in be suicide for them? For a moment, too many thoughts were constantly intertwined in my mind. Ning Qiushui took a breath, forcing himself to calm down. He then took out the eyes that the human-skinned female ghost had given him and placed them in his palm. Gurgle, gurgle. The pair of eyes swayed back and forth in Ning Qiushui's palm, finally settling on a direction in the village. Seeing this, no one spoke. Going in together might be too risky. Ning Qiushui pondered for a moment and then said this. Okay, I'll go in and check first. If I haven't come out in 2 hours, then you guys can think of another way. Upon hearing Ning Qiushui's words, the way everyone looked at him changed, especially Zongfang. That look in her eyes was almost like the look a fangirl has when she's chasing after a celebrity. Brother Ning, you're really something. You dared to go into this village all by yourself. Aren't you afraid of dying? At this moment, Zongfang felt not only admiration, but also a trace of jealousy. If she had that much courage, she wouldn't always be so anxious and fearful, and wouldn't have had a single good night's sleep since coming through this door. A hint of surprise appeared in Bai Zhaoxiu's eyes. She had long been impressed by Ning Qiushui's mental fortitude, but only now did she realize that she had greatly underestimated this newcomer. She even began to doubt whether Ning Qiushui was a normal person. Thinking back to her embarrassing experience of entering the blood gate for the first time and being so scared that she wet the bed, Bai Zhaoxiu couldn't help but sigh to herself. Comparison is the thief of joy. She went through several life or death crises before finally overcoming her fear of ghosts. However, Ning Qiushui is just naturally brave beyond belief. It's too dangerous for you to go in alone. Let me come in with you. Liu Chengfeng is still the same as always. Firstly, he trusted Ning Qiushui's abilities and luck. Secondly, he was genuinely worried about Ning Qiushui going inside alone. I'll go in with you. Bai Zhaoxiu pondered for a moment, then spoke. So far, we have no other clues. What is certain is that the eyes of this two-skinned female ghost are very important to Qiushui, the place she is. Looking at must also hide something important, even if it is not the head of the monk, the compassionate one. It is still of great help to our survival. This village is now on the verge of spiraling out of control. Every minute we stay here increases the danger. Rather than standing still and waiting to die, we should take a gamble. Having one more person searching for something will definitely make it faster than having one less person. After hearing Bai Zhaoxiu's words, the bespectacled man and Zongfang hesitated for a moment before deciding to follow them into the village, where blood was falling. Vomit. The overwhelming stench of blood nearly made two members of the group vomit the moment they stepped into the village. It took them quite a while to get used to the smell before they could finally barely accept it. Ning Qiushui kept those eyes in the palm of her hand. Interestingly, although the group had no umbrellas, thanks to the eyes given to them by the female ghost in human skin, a vacuum zone was formed around them, isolating them from the blood rain. Although the area is not large, it is enough to cover everyone. It's much better than I expected. Bai Zhaoxiu smiled. Although she could accept being soaked in the blood rain, it didn't mean she liked it. In most cases, girls are more fastidious about cleanliness than boys. The group ventured deeper into the village, carefully observing their. The sky outside wasn't dark, but the sunlight couldn't penetrate the village at all. Everyone who entered the village felt that everything was gray and gloomy. As they entered the village, Liu Chengfeng seemed to see something, pointed a finger into the distance, and exclaimed in a low voice, "Look!" Everyone looked in the direction he was pointing, and their breaths froze. They had never seen such a bizarre and terrifying scene before. Deep within the blood-soaked landscape along the village roads, outside the doors of every house, hung several mangled corpses. These corpses were all mangled, as if they had been crushed by various tools, with scarlet muscles turned outwards, internal organs hanging from the belly, and stark white bones faintly visible. The most terrifying thing was that these corpses, hanging from the eaves, all had extremely eerie smiles on their pale faces, staring straight at the people entering the village. They seemed to be silently and warmly welcoming the group of tourists entering the village. Among the group, Zongfang, the most timid, couldn't bear the terrifying gaze. She screamed, covered her hands, and squatted down on the ground. Seeing this, Ning Qiushui pulled her up. "If you're scared, don't look, and don't crouch on the ground. If you encounter a dangerous situation, you won't even have time to run." Zongfang felt a little more at ease as Ning Qiushui held her hand, but she still kept her head down, not daring to look into the distance. She was trembling so badly that Ning Qiushui felt that if she hadn't supported her, she probably wouldn't have been able to stand up. At this moment, Bai Zhaoxiu suddenly stepped forward without making a sound and helped Zongfang up. "I'll do it. You just focus on finding the way." Ning Qiushui nodded, and following the direction her eyes pointed, continued leading the group deeper into the terrifying village. Damn, this corpse is too creepy. Luckily, they don't move. As the group ventured deeper into the village, their fear subsided somewhat, because they soon discovered that the villagers hanging in front of their houses were not actually alive. They were just deliberately made to look like that after they were killed. After walking for about 10 minutes, Ning Qiushui suddenly stood in front of a small building that had been abandoned for a long time. The small building was constructed entirely of bricks mixed with cement, and it was filled with cobwebs. The rooms were covered in a thick layer of dust, suggesting that no one had lived there for a long time. There are no hanging corpses here. "This is it," Ning Qiushui said. They arrived under the eaves, and to ensure safety, Ning Qiushui even took out the blood jade from her person. It emitted a red light, neither strong nor weak. Ning Qiushui walked round, but suddenly a crack appeared in the blood jade in her hand. Ning Qiushui didn't say much. He knew that the use of the blood jade was limited in number. Bai Xiaoxiu had already told him that any ghost artifact obtained from behind the blood gate has a limited number of uses. Generally, powerful ghost artifacts can only be used more than 3 times. However, a very few special artifacts, such as the blood jade, can be triggered a relatively large number of times, but they are not unlimited. There shouldn't be any ghosts inside, otherwise the glow of the blood jade would change. Ning Qiushui's tone remained relatively stable, but he wasn't actually that certain, because this vengeful ghost named Guangshu is just too terrifying. It cannot be ruled out that the other party has the ability to conceal their presence. Let's go in together. Everyone be careful. Bai Xiaoxiu spoke first and pushed open the door. Squeak! A teeth-grinding, scraping sound rang out, and the old-fashioned wooden door was pushed open. The room had a strong smell of dust. There was also the squeaking of mice. After everyone entered the room, they seemed startled, turned into a black shadow, and disappeared into a corner. This small building is much larger than the normal houses in the village. In such an impoverished village as Q, the person who can live in such a building must have a special status. On the left corner of the lobby on the first floor hangs a photograph covered in thick dust, showing a family of 3. A man, a woman, and a little girl. Ning Qiushui had seen this man's photo in an old book in the sorceress's room. It was Ruin Xin, the son of Ruin Kaiwang. Ruin Xin is the shaman's father, and a crucial figure in how Q Village has evolved into what it is today. It seems this is Ruin Xin's home. After searching for a while, the group finally found a coffin in the south room of the first floor lobby. The group looked at each other in bewilderment. Bai Xiaoxiu, holding a wooden comb, stepped forward first and opened the coffin. Contrary to everyone's expectations, nothing suddenly jumped out of the coffin. There was only a skeleton lying there, and a well-preserved head. The head had its eyes tightly closed. Poor. Although its face was pale, it did not give off a sinister feeling. Instead, it had an indescribable sense of peace. In addition, everyone noticed that there was not a single hair on the head. They were extremely excited. Bai Xiaoxiu tried to take the head from the skeleton's hands from the coffin, but the moment she touched the head, the skeleton's pale hand suddenly grabbed Bai Xiaoxiu's wrists. Seeing this, everyone was about to step forward to help when Bai Xiaoxiu said, "Didn't you do enough to ruin the village before you died? Look for yourself. What a terrible hell it is outside the village now. If you did wrong in life, are you supposed to continue doing wrong after death?" Whether it was Bai Xiaoxiu's questioning that had an effect, making Ruin Xin's skeleton feel a little guilty, or whether it was just a lingering obsession and not a real vengeful ghost. In any case, as soon as Bai Xiaoxiu finished speaking, The skeleton, indeed, let go of its hands. Everyone noticed 2 dark finger marks on Bai Xiaoxiao's slender, snow-white wrist. "Sister Bai, are you all right?" Liu Chengfeng asked with concern. Bai Xiaoxiao shook her head. "Let's hurry up and leave. I have a feeling that this village is uncomfortable." Everyone nodded. No one would feel comfortable staying in a village where blood is falling. But the moment everyone stepped out of the house, they suddenly heard Zongfang's scream. They saw that Zongfang, who was walking at the front, was soaked through by the torrential rain of blood falling from the sky. Zongfang hurriedly retreated to the eaves, hugged herself, squatted on the ground, and cried loudly. She looked as if she were about to die. Ning Qiushui sensed something was wrong, and quickly took out the eyes that the human-skinned female ghost had given him. But when he placed those eyes in his palm, everyone saw that the female ghost's eyes were turning into a puddle of clear water at a speed visible to the naked eye. What's going on? Liu Chengfang was stunned. They were able to run rampant in the rain of blood entirely, thanks to the eyes of that female ghost. Now that the female ghost's eyes are gone, doesn't that mean they will all be soaked to the bone by this rain of blood? No one wanted to be drenched in this eerie rain of blood. "Check if there's an umbrella in the room." Ning Qiushui reacted immediately. He was starting to sense that something was wrong. He couldn't quite put his finger on what was wrong, but the feeling was awful, as if something terrible was about to happen, forcing him to leave this place as soon as possible. The group searched the room, but couldn't find the umbrella. Damn it. How come there isn't even an umbrella in this house? Sigh, it's Q Village. Just from the name of the village, you can tell how much the villagers love rain. It's understandable that they don't prepare umbrellas. The bespectacled man smiled, his face pale. Left with no other choice, the group had to grit their teeth and walk into the rain of blood. They all knew the village was dangerous. Every minute they lingered increased their chances of dying. As the blood rained down, everyone felt a bone-chilling cold as soon as they entered the curtain of blood-red rain. They also understood why Zongfang had reacted so strongly just now. They dared not delay for a moment, and braved the blood raining down on them as they ran toward the village entrance.